self-care. Self-care goes beyond bubble baths and a warm cup of tea. Hi, my name is Cindy Huston. I'm the founder of Yoga Body Elements Frequency Wellness Center, located in the city of Chicago, Illinois, in North America. And I've had the pleasure and honor of serving thousands of people around the world for over the last 30 years with their wellness practices, helping them create breakthroughs and helping them reclaim their health. And today we're talking about the art of self-care. So what does true self-care look like? So many people, when they think of self-care, they think of spas, they think of a warm cup of tea, a bubble bath. But I'm going to invite you to go a little deeper in this talk today. So I invite you, those of you that are watching, to type into the chat, what do you do for self-care? When you hear the word self-care, what does that come up? What comes up for you? And is anything you're entering into the chat sustainable? Is it something that you're able to do every day, every week, every month, or is it for that special occasion? And this is where I'm going to invite you to go a little deeper today and tap into what is self-care and how can self-care be an art form? How is it an art form? How do you create it so it works for you to avoid any burnout, and also to find ways to reclaim your energy and also create healthier relationships with rest and those moments of being still. So when we're in environments, and our environments and many cultures glorify when we are burnt out, when we say we have an extreme busy schedule, when we say yes over our no's, it's glorified to look extremely busy. And in the background, what is subtly happening is a burnout. Often starts as whispers and eventually turns into something very loud. And some of you watching this may be able to relate to this. I know myself throughout life as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a creative, as a director. I definitely have had those whispers, and I have definitely had those moments when I should have listened and created an art of self-care over going to that next project. So today I'm going to invite you to give yourself some time to pause. I'm going to give yourself some time to create. If you're just joining me, you may want to grab a pen and paper. You might get some creative ideas. You might even want to have your calendar in hand if there's something that you're wanting to take action right away and schedule into your calendar so that you can start creating self-care that works for you. So again, as I mentioned, self-care oftentimes it got linked to getting to that point of burnout or putting it to be the last priority. But when we're not taking care of ourselves, we're really not available. And it also, self-care got put into this, it has to be expensive, going to do an expensive treatment. And there's many things that we can do throughout the day before reaching that breaking point that we have available to us. And I'm going to go through a list of those options for you. Some of them you might already be doing, and some of these might be just great reminders. And self-care, though, is deeper than going to a spa. And I can say that myself. I'm a wellness center owner, and there's many things that I need to do, not only to hold a space like this for others, but also for my own personal self-care. So when we take time for our self-care, it supports our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual self. And it's important to contact all those points of self before we go to burnout. And for some of us, many of us, we were never taught this. We were just taught to do more, build your schedule, be available, say yes. You can type a yes into the comments if you can relate at all to this. And then take care of the body. But when we live in a life, when we live in a space of those vicious cycles, is it allowing you to protect your peace? Is it allowing you to rest without guilt? And it's that understanding that and remembering that healing and self-care is not selfish, it's necessary. It's necessary to live a quality life. It's necessary to have excellent relationships. It's excellent to be in communication. And when we're not taking care of ourselves, we're we're likely not showing up the way that we want to show up for others. And also in a sustainable way that you can create and be living the life that you truly want to live. So for those of you just joining me, my name is Cindy Huston, and just my bench. I'm the founder of Yoga Body Elements Frequency Wellness Center in Chicago, and I've had the pleasure and honor of serving thousands of people for over 30 years in different wellness practices, massage, yoga, Reiki, training people in these modalities, coaching people from all around the world, high-level CEOs into many high executive levels. And it's my pleasure and my honor to be with you and talk about the art of self-care today. So even in that category I just mentioned, there's a badge of honor to be successful, that we are doing more, that we're overworking ourselves, that we're taking ourselves to burnout, that if it's not painful, then we need to push harder. And that is simply not true, because when we get into that space of burnout, it affects everything in our life. It crashes our nervous system, it irregulates our hormones. And when we get to those first two I just mentioned, oftentimes it goes into impacting then our sleep patterns, our digestion, how we're communicating with people, our emotional level, our ability to regulate our emotions when there's pressure, when there's challenges, when there's differences. And then that often impacts our relationships, the quality of relationships that we're wanting to have and how we're wanting to show up and create with others in the world. And many people don't even realize when they're getting to that point of burnout, because it's become so normalized for us to push harder, do more, be more, until that point when the body is forced to stop. And many times people find me, and actually I hope they find me before they come to that point, so I can teach them some of these tools and techniques that have not only supported me, but this frequency wellness center has been built on. And so what do some of those breakdowns look like? It's chronic fatigue. It's feeling like you can never get enough rest, that you wake up feeling tired, that it's a hard time to get through the day, or you have that mid-afternoon crash and you're not able to pull yourself out. It looks like being irritable, getting frustrated right away. It looks like brain fog, not having clear thoughts, not being able to articulate, and not able to keep schedules straight. And it can also look like insomnia, waking up in the middle of the night, having those certain hours that you constantly wake up. That is something we want to balance out. It can look like muscle tension. It can look like you don't even remember what it's like to be joyful anymore. So these are points, if you can relate to any of these, or you're experiencing any of them, you are likely reaching that point of what people call burnout. And the body has been likely suddenly giving you whispers before it starts screaming. And if you're experiencing any of those, I invite you to listen a little deeper, stay with me a little longer on this talk, and pay attention to those whispers, so we can get you in balance and get you creating that art of wellness and self-care before the body screams, or you are forced to take a break from a life or a project that you're creating and you're already putting so much energy into. So let's create sustainable practices so you can feel supportive and not feel you have to push through, but you feel supported and nurtured, and you're taking care of yourself so you can keep going one step at a time to complete whatever amazing project you're creating. And so healing begins when we stop treating ourselves like machines. So just notice when you're getting into that habitual patterns of, and sometimes, the art of wellness, if you get into a really good routine, it can feel a little habitual. So it can be always good to kind of shake it up and create new things. But it's most important to find a routine that works for you. Find practices that work for you. We're bombarded in the wellness field right now of all these opinions of what wellness looks like. But most important, it's creating practices that works for you. And there's this idea of perfection. The one thing in life that's always consistent is change. So a practice that may have worked for you 10 years ago, a year ago, may not be the most supportive practice for you now. So being open to always evolving, meeting yourself where you are, meeting yourself where life's demands or requests are, and creating your self-care from there. So the best routine you can pick is one that is realistic. Some days you have time for the 2-hour practice. Some days you have time for the 10-minute practice. Sometimes the most simplest practices are the most powerful and what we can create consistent change with. So rather than creating a new list of wellness practices and supplements, pick one to three. I invite you to pick 1 to 3 and get consistent with that for 7 days, 14 days, 21 days. And what are some practices that you could pick up? What are some things you can check in with yourself? Question asked, am I drinking enough water? Am I allowing myself to take a 10-minute walk each day? Do I allow myself to stretch when I'm rising? Do I allow myself to stretch before going to bed? Do I check in throughout the day? Am I breathing? It could be just 3 breaths, hand on heart, hand on belly, inhale through the nose, exhale out the mouth. Do you give yourself time to turn off the phone completely or airplane mode so you can be disconnected? And do you consistently say no to things that drain you? So really knowing what is meant for you and what is not. And that, we will talk a little bit later, is creating boundaries for yourself and your relationships. Create some of the most healthy self-care practices available. So wellness doesn't have to feel overwhelming, but from that list I just shared with you, maybe you just pick 1 or 2 items and you focus on that for the next month and stay consistent. So you want to feel supportive in your life and not allow a wellness practice to be another task on your to-do list. So keep it simple so you can stay consistent. Then maybe in a month, 2 or 3, you add on something else in your self-care practice that you can commit to. And most important, with our self-care practice and the art of self-care, it often requires slowing down and doing less. Any of you that have attended a restorative yoga practice with me or any sort of training, you hear me say this mantra a lot. Allowing yourself permission where less is more is enough. Allowing yourself permission where less is more and is enough. So many people struggle with finding stress, and you can comment in the comments below, because they've attached being productive to being worthy. How many of you had that belief? Maybe some of you have transformed it or were raised with this belief. If to gain worth, you need to be doing more. I know there are parts in my life where if I wasn't doing more, I needed to do more. And it's taken some practice to have this conversation with you today. And what happens to self? What thoughts, what limiting beliefs, what stories that may or may not be yours show up when you allow yourself to have that space, when you give yourself that permission where less becomes more. So what does this look like? It looks like not seeing rest as laziness, but allowing rest to be restoration, self-care. It allows you to rest so your nervous system can regulate, because when we don't allow ourselves to rest and regulate and do less and see less sometimes as more, our mind speeds up, our bodies get tense, and sometimes our spirit feels all over the place. So allowing yourself that time to rest and reset. And sometimes rest isn't always sleeping. So what are some practices that, go ahead and share in the comments below. So what are some practices that you do that you feel restorative, that you feel is self-care, that gives you that space between the list of things to do and what you feel energetically you're capable to do today? Some, it might be finding a space where you can find silence. Some, it might be going out to nature. Some, it could be going to get a massage or taking a yoga class. or practicing your own breath work or attending a breath work practice. It could be journaling. It could be sound healing. It could be sitting in a space, finding a space where there isn't stimulation. If there's any of those lists, I'm going to invite you again, maybe add it to your list, those of you that are journaling right now, or you could put into the box right now, what is a practice I'm going to take into this next week that's going to support me in my restoration and creating that art form of self-care. And one of the most productive things we can do sometimes is just pause. Because when we're constantly in survival mode, our body never gets that space to regulate. Our nervous system never gets that space to regulate. So I invite you, any of that list, nature, go get a massage, pausing your breath, what can you do for the next 7 days? And so if you're just joining me, my name is Cindy Huston. I'm the founder of Yoga Body Elements Frequency Wellness Center located in the city of Chicago in North America. And it's been my pleasure and my honor to serve thousands of people around the world with wellness practices, including yoga, massage, energy work, training people in these modalities, cacao ceremonies, Native American traditions, different mantras and chants, and coaching people from high-level CEOs, Fortune 500 founders, to help them create their art of self-care so they can have breakthroughs and continue on that high-level work that they do for themselves and others, without a crash, without a burnout, without a breakdown. So if you scroll to the beginning of this video, I did list some options, and I'd be love to know, right, how many of those practices are you already doing? Is it something that you've thought about doing? And maybe what I share to a lot of my clients is schedule it. Just like you would schedule an appointment, schedule these practices into your calendar. You might even need to set an alarm to make sure that you're doing it. So one of the most foundations is sleep. So checking in that we're getting enough sleep. I have someone coming in for a session, so I'm going to need to wrap this video soon. And so water supports circulation, water supports detoxification, our brain function, and also our energy. So just making sure that you're hydrated is very, very important. So water. Am I drinking enough water? That was in our list earlier. Also, am I getting enough sleep? So sleep supports our healing, balances our hormones, and it helps regulate our emotions and our immune function. So anytime, right, some of you may do this for yourself, and some of you maybe have family members that encouraged you to, if you were feeling like your immune system was a little off, go to rest, go to bed, get some sleep. Another check-in is our nourishment. What we're putting into our bodies, is it giving us sustainability? Is it giving us self-care? Or are we grabbing 5 cups of coffee and a handful of sugar and just plowing through the day? Are we mindfully creating nourishment? And sometimes it's not just food, it can also be environment. So again, self-care is not about being perfect. It's a practice. And as our body changes, it's always, always shifting. So finding 1 to 3, start with 1 to 3 of these, anything we talked about today that can support you, that you can sustain for 7 days, 14 days, 21 days. No need to add on to the self-care, art of self-care, until you've got those down, and then move on. So some questions you can ask yourself. Am I drinking enough water? Am I getting enough rest? Am I nourishing myself consistently? Am I giving my body what it needs to function? And if you answered no to any of those, what would it look like if you were choosing different? What would you be nourishing yourself with? When would you be going to bed? What would you be adding into your day? So sometimes the smallest habits, the smallest shifts are often the ones that create the biggest impact. So again, my name is Cindy Huston. I'm the founder of Yoga Body Elements Frequency Wellness Center located in Chicago in North America, and I've had the pleasure and honor for well over 30 years to support people with their wellness with yoga, massage, energy work, cacao ceremonies, Native American traditions, mantras, and coaching high-level CEOs so they can continue on to create bigger businesses, greater networks, connections, so they can avoid burnout, and helping them create their self-care practices and rituals so they can get that turnaround or breakthrough and not have a breakdown. So next is talking about boundaries. So it's really checking in. Where are you giving your energy? Where can you balance out your energy? So not every conversation deserves your energy. Not every invitation requires your yes, and not every environment is healthy for you to be in. And so if you're feeling that any of those are showing up for you in your life, I'm going to invite you to check in and ask that question. What does it look like if you chose something different? And if you could find you can choose something different, I'm going to invite you to write 3 things. What would it look like if it was different? And what would I be doing? What are 3 things I could be doing differently to get the results I need? So that could be setting more boundaries. It could be spending less time in draining environments. It could be limiting any energy or environments that feel negative, and it could also be disconnecting yourself from social media. As we mentioned before, it's very important to take time away from the phones. It's very important to take time to shut off the phones, airplane mode when you're sleeping, and choosing rest over committing. And also prioritizing supportive relationships. Are you surrounding yourself with people and environments that are supportive? And if not, sometimes it might look like taking some time for yourself. It could be a month with just yourself. It could be a year with yourself. But really checking in, is it creating peace? When we can find that peace, we can have our healing. All right. So I hope this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll add my contact information below, and I'll also add some links if you're interested in working with me. And again, enjoy creating your art of self-care. You deserve it. You're valuable and you're worthy of it. And we always have choice to recreate. So if we are not creating the lives and living the life that we want, you have permission to recreate any moment, any time. And until then, until the next video, I'll see you soon. Have a great day. Enjoy your art of self-care. Bye for now.